Hi guys, Archie Luxury channel. And today I want to talk about wristwatches. I want to talk about collecting watches and going back. That's right, going back. What do I mean by this? Well, we all know wristwatches, it's always a progression. Generally speaking, we start off with a watch. We have a Casio, a Seiko, an Orient. Then we quest for more. We buy the next model up. We get, say, we go into brands like Tag and things like that there. Then we go up again. We go into entry-level Omegas. And then we go into the brand that is the king of all kings, Rolex. And just before I continue, like, subscribe, tell your friends about my channel. And don't forget, guys, I've got special videos for my Patreon sponsors. Patreon sponsors send a couple bucks a month to me, and they get some secret videos as well. So, I gotta tell you, also, guys, paid reviews. I depend on paid reviews to keep me full-time on YouTube. So let's have a talk about this. This is going back. And, you know, I've someone who didn't inherit money. I didn't win the lotto. I've had to work and struggle for my collection there. And in my case, I started off as a kid. I got my dad's discarded. It was a generic Swiss brand, just a shitter, a Technos. I then got his Seiko 5. And then I progressed to a Seiko Quartz. Then, actually, believe it or not, I also, actually just before the Seiko Quartz, I had a Citizen, which had a quartz watch, which had all these functions, gold-plated piece. Then I had the Seiko Quartz. Then I wanted the Omega. It was an Omega Seamaster on a rubber strap. Then, you know, I was in high school and I found the advertising. I wanted a Rolex. And I didn't have a lot of money. Rolexes were expensive. I didn't have a lot of money to buy this piece. So, you know, I was in business. I said to a jeweler friend, get me the cheapest men's Rolex. And it was all left to fate. I didn't pick it. It turned out to be a Plastic Explorer 1. But I didn't pick it. I didn't have much to do with it at all. And then, you know, so your progression as a collector, it's many, many steps. We normally just don't get a Rolex. You go through steps and levels of watches, and you know, I mean, the whole thing about horology is it's this learning curve. I mean, some people get a Seiko, they're happy with the Seiko, they never question it, they never move up. Nothing wrong with that. That's a cool way to go. Some people, they're always yearning for that next thing there, and the question I have is, once you've gone to a certain level, can you go back? Can you go back? And that's a really interesting question. Can you go back? And I know for myself, once I went to the Rolex level, I bought a few Rolexes. I at one stage there, this is nearly 20 years ago, I had the Day-Date as my Grail. I had an Explorer 2 Polar as my GMT function watch. I had a Date Sub Steel as my diver. And I had a Datejust, two-tone Datejust. And, you know, that was my Rolex bug there. Then business, this is inevitably happens. Life circumstances, you need the money, you sell them off. And it's very hard to go back to Seiko level. And I got to be honest with you, I never went back. I never went back to that. I'd rather have nothing than go to a Seiko level. And that's the interesting thing. Can you easily go back? The collection then got out of hand. Many years later, I had the Archie 5, two Patek Philippe's. I had an annual calendar, and I had a Calatrava. I had a Royal Oak. I had a Breguet Transatlantic, and I had a Jaeger Culture Reverso. Very nice collection indeed. The Archie 5, it was termed. And then I kind of moved on from Rolex and Omega. Because before that I had a Speedmaster Man on the Moon, which I sold to get the Breguet. You know, I'd kind of moved up. But then I discovered, you know, it was like going from a Mercedes-Benz to a Rolls-Royce or a Bentley. Yes, they're better. But there are some things that Mercedes-Benz did better, like waterproofing and ruggedness, and you can't really use a Rolls-Royce for everyday stuff. It kind of wasn't meant to be that way. So I went back to Rolex level, and I don't know if I could go much lower. I mean, I don't think I could go to, say, Seiko level. I mean, once you've gone to a certain level, can you go back? Can you go back? And that's a really, really good question. It's very hard, I think, to go back. I love the top end, the Patek, AP, Vacheron. I love all those brands there, but they're fairly kind of finicky pieces there. They're not everyday wearers. So with those sort of pieces, going back to, say, Rolex level is fine. But could you go back to, say, Seiko level? That is the question. I'm not talking Grand Seiko. I'm talking nasty Chinese Seiko. And that is a very tough question there indeed. It's very hard, in my opinion. Once you've gone up the rank, it's very hard to go down. It's like saying, okay, you start off with a GM car, a Chevrolet Malibu. Then you trade that and get a 5 Series BMW. Then you get an E-Class Mercedes. It's very hard to go back to the Malibu, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's very, very hard. Once you've gone up certain rungs there, it's very hard to go back down again. And I suppose Rolex is kind of the Mercedes-Benz of watches there. I mean, they're expensive, but affordable, you know, compared to a Rolls-Royce. But they're really dear compared to, say, a Chevy Malibu. They're kind of the benchmark. Everything's compared to Rolex, like I suppose with Mercedes-Benz. Other cars are sort of compared against it. I would say that, you know, this is a very, very tricky thing. Can you go back? Can you go back? And I kind of found it very hard. Like, once I've gone to the Rolex level, I find it hard to have kind of shitter pieces in my collection, like normal sort of average sort of crap. You know, that's kind of, once you've moved on, like I wouldn't have a Longines in my collection. You think, ooh, unless it was, say, like a solid gold Longines or a special edition. It's not really going to float the boat, if you know what I mean. You've moved past that bullshit fashion watch phase. And I want to talk about going back. Can you go back once you've hit these highs there? I think it's very hard. It's very, very hard indeed. I'm Archie Luxury. Tell me what you think. Put a comment below and let me know what you think of that. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends.